Hello, it's me again. Again, thank you for buying our course. It's good to see you again. Well, I can't see you. Hopefully, I'm not too bad to look at. If not, just think about the words that's coming out of my mouth, as they say on television. So, we want to talk some more about listings and listing, USD listing agent, if that's what you've decided to do. I recommend it, as we said in the last video. And we want to talk about different types of listings. So the way I like to say it is you have three types of listings. They're the three P's, as in Paul, as in pot, three P's. One is a probability. Now that is when the home is priced at or below market value. That's a probability. We're probably going to sell this house. Nothing is certain. Things can change. And you've had listings, man, this is going to sell in a week, a day. And you had them sell in a day, but sometimes that things change. The market dries up or whatever, the conditions change. And it is a probability. It should sell, but there are no guarantees. You know that. You've had them fall apart, and I have too. So if you're new, just believe what we tell you. There will be deals that fall apart. And even though you've got a sure thing, it is really a probability. Probably it will sell. The second P is a possibility, and that's slightly above the market value. Now, you're going to learn, if you don't already know, how to do a good CMA, comparative market analysis. Now, I call it competitive market analysis half the time. So do not get upset, because that's what it is. You're competing against other houses. It's actually a better name for it. But you are comparing these other houses to establish a value. So once you've established that, if you go higher than that, even slightly higher than that, then it becomes a possibility. It's possible we can sell your home at this price. It's possible. Not likely, especially if you're in a competitive market and the buyers are short. Houses are, many of them on the market. You have to get either at the market or below, better below. And then the third one, a prayer. As in the statement, you don't have one. If that is considerably above market. Now, there are some instances, like we've said, that you will take a listing, no matter what the price. If they're leaving town, if they got to sell, they're going to be out of town, you take it and explain. Now, here's the figures that I've come up with. Now, sometimes I've been wrong on these. And if you have trouble talking to the seller and he know we're going to take this once they get out of town, guess what? Their feelings change. I don't want that house over in that other city. It's costing me money every month. And so you get your price reductions. And it's even good to do that up front in your listing agreement. You say, okay, I think I'm right, but you might be right. And I'm willing to concede on the price. We'll list it at your price, but how about for 30 days? And then if it doesn't, then we'll get back down to closer to what, the market is bearing. And it'll tell us who's right or wrong. I'm not saying who is, you or I. Everybody thinks they're right, and I do, but you know more about the house and I know more about the market. So we're kind of on an even keel here. So what about this? We say we reduce it to closer to what if we haven't gotten an offer, and let's hope we do. I really do. And we're going to do everything we can to get you an offer. We're going to market this thing like crazy. We're going to expose it. And we're going to do everything possible, and it's to both our advantages to have that done. But if it does not sell in the first 30 days, we want to reduce it close to what we established with the comparative sales. homes that are similar. No house is exactly alike, so this is not an exact science, but we can get pretty close. So let's do that. And then if it hasn't sold in the next 2 weeks, then we reduce it to the market value. And that way we know we haven't underpriced it. We've given it a shot here. But what we do not want to do is let those days on the market continue to build. And you know what the first question that people ask if the days on the market are high? Why hasn't it sold? There must be something wrong with it. I don't even want to look at it. Or there's something wrong with this house. Must be, why hadn't somebody else bought it? And so we want to avoid that thinking there. Now, the agent can help us with that because they can see the price reductions. If it's started here, coming down, coming down, coming down, they said they're acknowledging that they may have been a little high. So that's probably why it didn't sell, but still a good buy on this house. So you want to help that seller to get rid of this house that they don't need when they're in a different city. Agreed? I hope so. Thank you. So that's the way we do it. And we put it on our listing agreement. We're going to reduce the price here. We're going to reduce the price here. Another thing that you can put on there is if they're hesitating to sign this agreement, I put in there, you can cancel this at any time for any reason. You just let me know. You cannot lose with this. So let's go ahead. Would that be okay? You get permission. You ask permission. Nobody likes to be bullied. We ask nicely. Please, can we do this? Just like on this course. And we thank them for that. Remember, show ourselves thankful. And thank you for buying this course. Now, there's a few objections. If the people are living in the house and they are not moving out of town, they want to look for another house and so forth, and their house is overpriced. You only take a listing when the seller is leaving town and they have equity. They have equity. Because if the mortgage is higher or equal, you put the commission truly on there, and that's the reason many people can't sell it. So it must have equity, and they're leaving town, and then you take it, no matter what. Now, what if they don't have any equity? What would you do? Well, first of all, you would ask, are you willing to put up money to be rid of this house? We're going to need this much. Will you do that? Yes, sir, Mr. Krigler. Yes, sir, Landon. Yes, sir, Sally. Yes, sir, Jane, Joe. We're not using Jim anymore. So there you go. You got it. We've got an agreement. They're going to pay for this and get out of that house, because this really, a home without equity is a renter with debt. See, one of the advantages of being a renter, you don't have to take care of anything, no obligation, but you're not an owner if you're equity, if you don't have any equity. So you are a renter with debt. That's worse than a renter. You got to get out of that situation. And you have to explain that to the seller. Now, again, we want to ask some more questions. Don't walk away too quick, but walk away if none of this fits. A bad listing is worse than no listing. Believe you me. And you'll experience that. What is the old saying? It's not the people I fired that keep me up at night. It's the ones I didn't. So it's not the listings that you let go before they were overpriced. It's the ones you took, and you were married to them for a year, and it was a bad marriage there. The seller is not yielding, not reasonable. But there is another way that we can fine. That's what we do. Our number 2 in our introductory videos about planning, remember it was a swan with that stethoscope and looking for the problem that that person has. So we want to ease their pain, like that swan doctor, number 2. And if you hadn't looked at our video, you don't know what I'm talking about, but that's okay. We use pictures to represent numbers, and that helps us remember twice as much on lists. Not everything, but twice as much on lists. So here's the question. What kind of mortgage do you have? And they say, I don't know. You say, well, let's see if we can find out. Do you have your papers? Oh, it's a VA mortgage. It's an FHA mortgage. We can work with that. We can work with that. Now, the time that you can work with that is when the rates are below what the current rates are. And we're going to show you how to figure that. You'll be amazed here at the difference between what $20,000, a $200,000 house payment is at 5% or 4%, let's say 4%, and 7%. If the rates go up to 7, you got a 4% loan, you got a gold mine. We're going to show you how much, and you can show this to the seller, but they've got to be willing. Got to be willing. You know, they say, well, I paid so much for this house. I'm not gonna sell it for that, because it's going to be lower. Because the people are going to be paying a big cash down payment to assume that loan. So what do you tell them? I can't do it. Can't do it. Man, I bought this thing for $250,000. I can't sell it for $200,000. That's just against my principles. And here's the question that you ask them. If you inherited the home, would you give it away? Because that's what you paid for. 0. So would you? I don't think you would. I'm just hoping you'll understand my question here, that it doesn't matter what you paid. If you bought it for less than and it gave up 5 times, you wouldn't feel guilty about making 5 times the money on it, would you? No. And so you got it for 0. Anything you actually get out of it is a profit. So it's not the way to look at it. The value is established neither by you nor me, but the market. What people are willing to pay for similar houses. That's true. Every house is different. Your house is truly unique, and it's nice. But you or I really don't establish the value. So we have to sell it at market value, even below a little bit if you really want to move fast, or just slightly above. So that's the way to overcome that. So now we're back to, we have to get out our calculator a little bit. And we're going to hopefully share our screen here with our calculator. And I'm going to F clear X here. How many of you know what this is? It's HP12C. I've used this for 40 years, but sometimes I forget even how to use it. But let's just say you got a $200,000 home. Here you're $200,000. That's the present value. Now you have to do these things a little different. And this loan is 4%. Now this is not unusual now. You're going to run into this all the time. And rates are, I believe, are going to go up, don't you? And so anyway, we're going to go, but you got to divide it by 12. See those little blue things underneath? You break it down into monthly. It's 4% per year. And the same thing on the months. It's a 30-year loan, and we're going to multiply the number here. So that gives you 360. All right, got it? All right, so what did we say? It was 200,000, and the interest rate was 4%, and we did that. So what we're going to look at is the payment. $954.83 for a $200,000 loan. Now that is correct. That is correct. Doesn't sound like it, does it? Well, by the time you add taxes and the insurance and the mortgage insurance or whatever, where you live, it could be 1,500, even 2,000, depending on the taxes. If you live out west, forget it. You're probably paying taxes. Well, there's a saying. Anyway, so now we want to go back and say, okay, the rates now, Mr. Buyer, are 7%. And that's still good. I remember when they were 18% when I first started. I think in the 80s, 79, 80s, went up to 18%. And so we had to sell homes on assumptions, FHA and VA. That's how I made a living, about to starve. Couldn't get a new mortgage, but they were all assumable. Those were non-qualifying. Here's the money. Here's your house. Easy peasy. Quick closing. Just get your title company. Boom. Advertise this much equity, and it was sold. All right. So now we've got this payment, and it shows negative because that's what's going out. All right. So now we're going to go get a new loan at 7%. All right. So we've got this established. That's our payment right here. All right. So we're going to go get a 30-year. We're going to say 30-year loan. Oh, and our interest rate is going to be 7. That's still good. Don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. So we're going to divide that, make it here. So, Mr. Buyer, so let's go out and buy you a house with that same payment, this $200,000 or $250,000 that we've got, and let's see how much you can buy at 7%. All right. So instead of $250,000, we're going to start looking at $140,000 houses. How does that sound to you? You haven't liked the ones at $250,000. So that is what this payment that we have on this house that you like here, that's what it'll buy if we go out and try to buy another one doesn't have a loan like this. This is a golden opportunity. And if you ever want to sell it too, it will still be assumable in the future, but you got to come up with some more cash. So you see how we can use these figures to sell these homes. Now, where can you use this? Look in your expireds and see what type of loan that they have. And you can call them, why'd your house not sell? Well, my agent didn't do a good job. Isn't that the right answer? Always the right. My agent was terrible. That joker promised me this. He priced it too high. La-di-da-di-da. And some of it may be true, but that's okay. We can take the blame as long as we get the money. I'll take the blame and accept the money, if you will. So what do? You say, well, I don't want to mislead you, but let me show you what I can do. You have something valuable that you may not even realize. That is the loan on your home. Now it's a weight around your neck, but in this climate, that mortgage has value. As long as it's assumable. Conventional, they cut out. They were having to keep these low interest loans forever, and so whenever something's good, what happens? Those in charge change it. Dodd-Frank. And that's another story altogether. Some of you may understand that, some of you won't. I had 5 mortgage companies, and it became, after Dodd-Frank, the great minds of this world. Never mind. Anyway, they made it so difficult. You had to have a compliance officer with every originator standing by his side to make sure he didn't make a mistake. And you always made mistakes. It's 28 items that you have to check off. That was back years ago on your processing sheet. So almost impossible to do a loan. And you've heard horror stories about that. So kind of drove me out of the business. Besides, I had one dealer, Chase, that fired us, everybody. So that made it a little bit more difficult. I didn't want to start from scratch. So there we go. So that is listing 109. It's not 101 because you're not going to get this everywhere. You're going to get it here. This is from things that I've done in the past, like I told you. We're not just teaching you theory. This can be done. And it just gives you an extra. You might sell one house extra. You might make $5,000 to $10,000 off of this one idea. You could make a lot if the rates go up, and nobody else knows how to do this, but you do. You do. Okay? So glad you took our course. I hope you are. Don't ask for your money back. Well, you can, and no questions asked, but do it for the right reason, not because you need the money, but because you really didn't get what you thought you'd get out of this course. And hopefully you're the type of person that's getting what you need. And that's what I want to give you, what you need to become a more successful realtor. Techniques, and we are just getting started. We've got a lot of things to cover. And so we'll do that in our next video. I'm going to stop the screen share now, look at you. And hopefully you're looking at me. If you can stand it for just a little while longer. So this is part of the listing section. Now, the selling section and the planning section are all just as good. And so when you get finished with this, if you haven't taken those, you need to take them. And if you take one of these, stay tuned. We have a lot more to go. Even under the listings, we're not finished. We're going to show you how to do comparative market analysis, competitive market analysis, and give you some tips on how to do that. Maybe get an appraiser to do it. But I've learned some of this from appraisers on how to make these adjustments. And that's what you want to do. And we're going to show you a video on that as well. So hang in there with us. Hope everything's going well for you. And we'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much.